At 91, Shirley Jones finally reveals the truth about Burt Lancaster. To appreciate why her statements today are so compelling, one must go back to the very beginning of her life. Shirley Mae Jones was born on March 31, 1934, in the small town of Charleroi, Pennsylvania, and grew up in neighboring Smithton. Her childhood was small-town America. At its most conventional, close-knit towns, modest residences, church on Sundays, and the tradition that young females would be married off young and have stable family lives. But Shirley was never meant to be ordinary. From a young age, it was evident she possessed a voice that was unlike any other. Her parents, who were deeply devoted to her and proud of her talents, urged her to take voice lessons, sowing the seeds for what would become a legendary Hollywood career one day. The small-town girl with the golden voice was soon on a road that led her face-to-face with the legendary personalities who formed the golden age of Hollywood. Her odyssey started with a meeting that might only be labeled as fate. When the most dominant songwriting duo of the 20th century, Richard Rodgers and Oscar Hammerstein, heard her sing, they were so taken by the purity and clarity of her soprano voice that they offered her a personal contract. Only one other singer, Shirley, had received such a commendation from the renowned duo, and that seal of approval was sufficient to open doors that few would have ever imagined. She debuted on the big screen in 1955 with the screen version of Oklahoma, playing Lori Williams, the ultimate farm girl. The movie was both a box office and critical hit, making her an overnight sensation as America's sweetheart. She personified wholesomeness and innocence, but also had a quiet inner strength that people found reassuring and inspiring. She was complimented by critics for her strength of portraying vulnerability yet determination, and Shirley Jones overnight became a name that was on everyone's lips. Hollywood soon recognized that she was a precious gem, able to drive musicals by voice and personality alone. She appeared in Carousel 1956, where she co-starred with Gordon MacRae, giving a sorrowful performance replete with yearning and elegance. In 1962, she appeared as librarian Marion Peru in The Music Man alongside Robert Preston, a part that became iconic. Again, her mix of musical ability, warmth, and subtle comedic touch endeared her to audiences. To millions, Shirley Jones appeared typecast as the innocent, angelic heroine, pure, reliable, and forever good. But Shirley had no desire to settle into the security of those roles. She was aware that she could give more. She made a bold move in 1960 by playing Lulu Baines opposite the intimidating Burt Lancaster in the film Elmer Gantry. The movie was about a con-man pastor who uses religion for selfish purposes, and Shirley's character, a woman seduced, deceived, and destroyed by him, was a far cry from her previous screen persona. Audiences that had cherished her as the virginal Marion in The Music Man were stunned. Lulu was worldly, sensual, and broken, and Shirley played her with such commitment and richness that it shocked critics and audiences alike. Her gamble paid off in spectacular fashion. Shirley received the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress, an honor that shattered the limitations of her career and demonstrated she was capable of much more than wholesome ingenues. That Oscar-winning role positioned her alongside Burt Lancaster directly in ways that would reverberate throughout her memory the remainder of her life. Lancaster, a well-established Hollywood giant by that time, had a magnetic presence in the film. He was forceful, volatile, and authoritative both on and off the screen. For Shirley, the experience was transformative. It was not merely a matter of acting with a superior player. It was a matter of learning to hold her own against a man who contained raw energy and intensity. During the 1970s, Shirley went through another career cycle, which charmed a whole new generation. As Shirley Partridge, the widowed mother of 5 kids in the Partridge Family, she was a TV legend between 1970 and 1974. The series was a runaway hit, mixing family sitcom, music, and warm-hearted storylines into a cultural event. Millions listened weekly to the exploits of the Partridge Family singing clan, and Shirley gained hearts once more, not this time as a romantic heroine, but as a warm, quick-witted, and durable mother. The role acquainted her with a new generation and solidified her place as television's favorite matriarch. But Shirley never let herself be immobilized by image. She shocked the audiences yet again in 1975 by appearing in the TV drama Winner Take All, where she portrayed a compulsive gambler whose habit destroys her life. The role came as a shock to all those who had become used to her bright characters, but it only established her range and bravery as an actress even more. Equally, her subsequent appearances on programs such as The Drew Carey Show and her Emmy-nominated role in There Were Times Dear, where she acted out a wife struggling to cope with her husband's Alzheimer's, showed that she could still reinvent herself and touch hearts on profoundly emotional levels. Off-screen, Shirley's private life was as dramatic as any movie script. In 1956, she wed actor Jack Cassidy. They formed a family together, adopting 3 sons, Sean, Patrick, and Ryan, and Shirley became stepmother to David Cassidy, Jack's son from a former marriage. David would become a teen idol worldwide with the Partridge Family. There seemed on the surface to be a fairy tale Hollywood marriage, but beneath it, there was turmoil. Jack Cassidy was charming, gifted, and charismatic, but also unstable. Their union lasted almost 2 decades before it broke up in divorce in 1975. Sadly, just a year later, Cassidy perished in a fire from a carelessly lit cigarette in his apartment. Shirley, even though they had broken up, was heartbroken. In subsequent interviews, she confessed that although she had married again, this time to comedian Marty Ingalls, Jack would always be the love of her life. She admitted that if Jack were alive, she probably would not have married Marty. Her marriage to Marty Ingalls, if unusual and frequently stormy, lasted almost 4 decades until his passing in 2015. Where Jack Cassidy had embodied passion and a volatile temperament, Marty infused the marriage with humor and quirkiness. It was an odd couple union with pluses and minuses, but held together by abiding love. Yet Shirley never dismissed the profound shadow that Jack cast over her life, evidence of how first loves get seared into the psyche. Now 91, Shirley Jones looks back candidly on her life and the people who defined it. Among them, none looms more vividly than Burt Lancaster. For years, she said little about him, always measured in her comments. But there's freedom with age, and today Shirley sees no reason to hold anything back. Burt Lancaster was one of a kind, she acknowledges. His impression on me has lasted a lifetime. She remembers that working with him on Elmer Gantry was at once thrilling and frightening. Lancaster's presence was one that could intimidate anyone. He was huge, not just physically, but emotionally as well. He could be frightening one moment and completely charming the next, she recalls. You had to try to rise to his level, or you'd be engulfed by his energy. For Shirley, the experience was transformative. Lancaster challenged her to do everything she could, and in doing so, she found reserves of herself she didn't even know she had. But Lancaster was more than an actor. He was a contradiction. Publicly, he was athletic, virile, and authoritative, molded by his early days as a circus acrobat. In private, Shirley glimpsed an occasionally vulnerable, brooding, guarded man. There was a wall around him, she states, but if you waited patiently, you could catch glimpses of a sensitive soul beneath. He was always thinking, always strategizing. That's what made him both brilliant and infuriating. What impressed her most about him, though, was his professionalism. Lancaster approached every scene as though it were the most significant of his life. He never skimped on work or took shortcuts. He thought every line had significance, Shirley says. He pushed you to be your best, sometimes beyond what you thought you were capable of. And while it was scary, I'm thankful, because I emerged better because of it. Even in their work, Shirley was unable to resist being drawn into his aura. Burt had a presence that filled up a room, she admits. Not just his appearance, though he was amazingly handsome. It was his personality. People turned their heads when he walked in, and once he was there, You couldn't help but notice him. Honestly, you didn't wanna. Shirley is quick to assert that her relationship with Lancaster was professional, but she does admit to the fascination he evoked. He was unforgettable, she states flatly, and now, in retrospect with age's benefit of foresight, she perceives him differently than she did at the time as a young actress. I used to think of him as mythic, larger than life. Now I can see him for what he was, a man brilliant and imperfect, passionate and complex. That's what made him unforgettable. There will never be another like him. By coming forward now, Shirley Jones is not attempting to sensationalize her tale. Rather, she presents honesty, a straightforward reflection on one man who assisted in crafting one of the most significant pages of her professional life. Her recollections of Lancaster are equal measures admiration, awe, and a reminder of the profound impact that human connection can have, even when it only exists within the boundaries of professional association. Shirley Jones, at 91, has lived a life of victory and defeat, grit and rebirth. She has sung with the finest composers, acted with iconic stars, brought up a family amid the Hollywood tradition, and survived love and loss with strength. Her reminiscences about Burt Lancaster remind us not just of his towering reputation, but also of the mortal behind the legend. In speaking her truth, Shirley presents us with not scandal, but insight, a picture of a man both brilliant and challenging, and a reminder that even Hollywood's brightest stars were ultimately deeply human. Shirley is quick to assert that her relationship with Lancaster was professional, but she does admit to the fascination he evoked. He was unforgettable, she states flatly, and now, in retrospect with age's benefit of foresight, she perceives him differently than she did at the time as a young actress. I used to think of him as mythic, larger than life. Now I can see him for what he was, a man brilliant and imperfect, passionate and complex. That's what made him unforgettable. There will never be another like him. By coming forward now, Shirley Jones is not attempting to sensationalize her tale. Rather, she presents honesty, a straightforward reflection on one man who assisted in crafting one of the most significant pages of her professional life. Her recollections of Lancaster are equal measures admiration, awe, and a reminder of the profound impact that human connection can have, even when it only exists within the boundaries of professional association. Shirley Jones, at 91, has lived a life of victory and defeat, grit and rebirth. She has sung with the finest composers, acted with iconic stars, brought up a family amid the Hollywood tradition, and survived love and loss with strength. Her reminiscences about Burt Lancaster remind us not just of his towering reputation, but also of the mortal behind the legend. In speaking her truth, Shirley presents us with not scandal, but insight, a picture of a man both brilliant and challenging, and a reminder that even Hollywood's brightest stars were ultimately